Commander Vex-9 of the Zenthari Empire adjusted his 4 optical sensors, each one independently focusing on the holographic display floating before him. The bridge of his flagship, the Dominator's Fist, hummed with the quiet efficiency of 1,000 crew members working in perfect synchronization. Well, almost perfect. "Sir," his communications officer, Lieutenant Crowell, announced with barely concealed excitement, "we've received confirmation from High Command. Operation Cleansing Wind is approved." Vex-9's mandibles clicked together in what his species considered a smile. After 3 standard cycles of planning, the moment had finally arrived. The humans would learn what it meant to challenge the Zenthari Empire. "Excellent," Vex-9 replied, his voice carrying across the bridge with the authority of someone who had personally conquered 17 star systems. "Signal the fleet. We move to the Sol system immediately." The irony wasn't lost on him. These humans, these soft, pink creatures with their ridiculous single pair of eyes, had somehow managed to irritate the most powerful military force in the known galaxy.
It was almost amusing.
3 months earlier, humanity had made what the Galactic Council considered an unforgivable mistake. They had refused to surrender their independence and join the Zenthari Empire as a tributary species. Worse, they had actually laughed when the ultimatum was delivered. Ambassador Thex-12 had returned to the homeworld with recordings of human diplomats literally holding their stomachs and making those strange wheezing sounds they called laughter. One human, a female named Director Lisa Park, had wiped moisture from her eyes and said, "Oh, you're serious. We thought this was some kind of joke." The memory still made Vex-9's auxiliary hearts beat faster with indignation. "Sir," Navigation Officer Ewell interrupted his thoughts, "we're approaching the outer edge of the Sol system. Long-range sensors are detecting significant human fleet movement." "How significant?" Vex-9 asked, though he wasn't particularly concerned. Intelligence reports indicated that humanity possessed perhaps 200 ships of various sizes. His own fleet consisted of over 3,000 vessels, each one capable of reducing a planet to molten slag. "Approximately 150 ships, sir. They appear to be forming a defensive line near the 4th planet." Vex-9's mandibles clicked again. The humans were making this almost too easy. They were actually going to try to fight. How delightfully naive. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he commanded. The main screen flickered, and suddenly Vex-9 found himself staring at a human male with graying hair at the temples and remarkably calm brown eyes. The human was wearing what appeared to be a military uniform, though it looked rather plain compared to Zenthari ceremonial armor. "I am Admiral Marcus Cole, of the Earth Defense Force," the human said without preamble. "I assume you're here to discuss our previous conversation with your ambassador." "I am Commander Vex-9, came the reply. "And there is nothing to discuss. You will surrender immediately or we will demonstrate why the Zenthari Empire rules half the galaxy." Admiral Cole nodded thoughtfully, as if considering a particularly interesting philosophical question. "You know, Commander, we've been looking forward to this conversation. In fact, we've prepared a little demonstration of our own." "Demonstration?" Vex-9 felt his confidence waver slightly. Something about the human's tone was unsettling. "You see," Cole continued conversationally, "we've been studying your empire for quite some time. Your tactics, your technology, your psychology. We've learned some fascinating things about your species." "Enough." Vex-9's voice boomed across the bridge. "You have 10 minutes to power down your weapons and prepare for boarding. Any resistance will be met with complete annihilation." "Oh, Commander." Admiral Cole smiled, and Vex-9 noticed that the expression didn't reach the human's eyes at all. "I think you misunderstand the situation here. You see, we humans have a saying, the best defense is a good offense. Would you like to know what that means?" Before Vex-9 could respond, his tactical officer's voice cut across the bridge with barely contained panic. "Sir, multiple contacts appearing on sensors. They're everywhere." The main tactical display lit up like a festival celebration gone wrong. Red dots indicating hostile contacts were appearing throughout the system. Not just a few dozen, not even hundreds, thousands. "That's impossible," Vex-9 whispered, his confidence evaporating like moisture in a solar flare. "Our intelligence reports, they're based on what we wanted you to see." Admiral Cole's voice continued from the communication channel. "You see, Commander, humans have another saying, keep your friends close and your enemies closer. We've been very close to your empire for a very long time." "Sir," his weapons officer called out, "I'm reading over 8,000 human vessels. Correction, 9,000. They're still appearing. Vex-9's primary brain struggled to process the information. 9,000 ships. The humans were supposed to be a primitive species, barely capable of interplanetary travel. Their largest vessel should have been no bigger than a Zenthari patrol craft. Tactical assessment, he barked, trying to maintain some semblance of command authority. Sir, many of their vessels are larger than our dreadnoughts. Some are the size of space stations. I'm reading energy signatures that don't match anything in our databases. On the screen, Admiral Cole was still smiling that unsettling smile. Would you like to know another thing we learned about your species, Commander? You're predictable. Remarkably, almost boringly predictable. How dare you? For example, Cole continued as if Vex-9 hadn't spoken. We knew you would bring exactly 3,214 vessels. We knew you would approach from the galactic north. We knew you would demand surrender before attacking. We even knew you would position your command ship in the center of your formation, protected by your heavy cruisers. Vex-9's blood ran cold. Every detail Cole mentioned was absolutely correct. Which is why, the human admiral continued, his voice taking on a distinctly predatory tone, we positioned our new experimental weapons platforms exactly where they needed to be. What platforms? Vex-9 demanded, though part of him didn't want to know the answer. The ones that have been targeting your command ship for the last 3 minutes, Cole replied cheerfully. Oh, and Commander, that demonstration I mentioned? It's about to begin. The communication channel went dead. For exactly 2.7 seconds, the bridge of the Dominator's fist was completely silent. Then every alarm system on the ship began screaming simultaneously. Massive energy buildup, the weapons officer shouted. Unknown technology. They're charging something big. Evasive maneuvers, Vex-9 commanded, but even as he spoke, he knew it was too late. The humans had planned this too well. Space around the Zenthari fleet suddenly lit up with weapons fire, unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Heaps of pure energy particle cannons that could slice through heavy armor like tissue paper, and something that appeared to bend the very fabric of space-time itself. The first wave of Zenthari vessels simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not damaged, they were there one moment and gone the next, leaving behind only rapidly dissipating energy signatures. Sir, Hologur's communications officer Kral's voice cracked with panic. Holo receiving transmissions from across the fleet. 67 ships destroyed in the first attack. No survivors. Vex-9 watched in horror as his perfectly organized fleet formation collapsed into complete disarray. Ships were firing wildly in all directions, trying to hit targets that seemed to phase in and out of existence. His tactical display looked like someone had thrown paint at a wall. Return fire, he ordered desperately. All weapons, maximum power. The Zenthari fleet responded with everything they had. Plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, graviton disruptors, weapons that had reduced entire civilizations to space dust. The combined firepower was enough to sterilize a dozen worlds, and the humans absorbed it all like it was a light breeze. Impossible, Vex-9 breathed, staring at the display. Their shields. What are their shields made of? Sir, his science officer reported with a voice full of disbelief. Preliminary analysis suggests they're using some kind of adaptive technology. Their defensive systems are literally learning and evolving in real time. That's not possible. No species has that level of technology. Apparently, sir, the humans do. The communication channel suddenly reactivated, and Admiral Cole's face appeared on the screen again. Behind him, Vex-9 could see a command center that looked more like a work of art than a military installation. Humans were moving with calm, practiced efficiency, as if this were just another day at the office. Dorigas calls were veneers in you, sir. Ivriabe su wait. Commander Vex-9, Cole said pleasantly. I hope you're beginning to understand the situation. You came here expecting to find a weak, primitive species ripe for conquest. Instead, you found something rather different. What? What are you? Vex-9 managed to ask. We're humans, Commander, and we have a problem with bullies. Another wave of human weapons fire swept through the Zenthari formation. This time the targeting was surgical. Each shot disabled rather than destroyed, leaving ships dead in space but crews alive. You see, Cole continued conversationally. Your empire has been conquering species for over 2,000 years, always the same pattern. Find a weaker civilization, demand submission, quash any resistance. It's worked well for you. Vex-9's tactical display showed his fleet strength dropping by the minute. 3,000 ships had become 2,000, then 1,500, then 1,000, and the humans hadn't even begun to look strained. But here's the thing about humans, Commander. We don't like being told what to do. We especially don't like being threatened. And we really don't like watching bullies pick on people who can't fight back. This is impossible, Vex-9 repeated, though his voice lacked any real conviction. You're just one species, one world. Admiral Cole's smile widened. Oh, Commander, we haven't been just one world for a very long time. The tactical display suddenly expanded, showing not just the Sol system but the entire local star cluster. Vex-9's optical sensors focused and refocused, trying to process what he was seeing. Human ships were everywhere, not just in the Sol system, but in dozens of systems throughout the sector. Systems the Zenthari had thought were uninhabited, systems they had marked for future expansion. How long? Vex-9 asked quietly. How long have we been watching your empire?
About 800 years.
How long have we been preparing for this moment? About 300 years. How long have we been building our fleet? Long enough. Vex-9's knees gave out, and he sank into his command chair. His entire worldview was collapsing around him like a house of cards in a hurricane. Our intelligence networks, he said, more to himself than to the human admiral. They never detected anything. Because we didn't want them to, Cole replied simply. Commander, your empire controls half the galaxy through fear and superior technology. But you made one critical mistake. What mistake? You assume that any species capable of resisting you would have done so openly. You never considered that someone might be smart enough to hide, to watch, to learn, and to prepare. The bridge of the Dominator's fist was now filled with the sounds of controlled panic. Damage reports, casualty figures, and tactical assessments flowed in a constant stream of bad news. Vex-9's proud fleet was being systematically dismantled by an enemy he had never seen coming. What do you want? He finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Right now, we want you to go home, Commander. Take what's left of your fleet and return to Zenthari space. Tell your high command exactly what happened here. They'll never believe it. Then bring them recordings. Show them the evidence. Make them understand that the galaxy has changed. Vex-9 looked at his tactical display one more time. Of his 3,000 ships, less than 800 remained operational. The human fleet showed no signs of damage whatsoever. And if they decide to return with a larger force? Admiral Cole's expression became very serious. Commander, what you've seen today is just the beginning. If your empire chooses to continue down the path of conquest and oppression, you will learn exactly how creative humans can be when they're properly motivated. The communication channel closed, leaving Vex-9 alone with his thoughts and his decimated fleet. Around him, his crew waited for orders that he wasn't sure how to give. For the first time in his military career, Commander Vex-9 of the Zenthari Empire was forced to give an order he had never imagined speaking. All ships, he said into his communication system, his voice heavy with defeat and disbelief. Retreat. Set course for home. As the surviving Zenthari vessels began their long journey back to Empire space, Vex-9 couldn't shake the image of Admiral Cole's calm, confident smile. The humans had played a game of strategy that spanned centuries, and the Zenthari had never even realized they were pieces on the board. But something told him this was only the beginning of a much larger story. The emergency session of the Zenthari High Council convened exactly 47 hours after Commander Vex-9's humiliating retreat from the Sol system. The great chamber, carved from a single piece of obsidian, and capable of holding 10,000 beings, felt oddly empty with only the 12 Supreme Commanders present. Grand Marshal, Thok Prime, Supreme Leader of the Zenthari Empire, sat upon his throne of conquered worlds, each armrest crafted from the crystallized remains of a different species' homeworld. His 6 eyes, each one representing a different conquered sector, focused on the holographic display showing Vex-9's combat recordings. Explain to me again. Thok Prime's voice rumbled like distant thunder, how 3,000 of our finest warships were defeated by a species we classified as primitive farmers and miners. Commander Vex-9, standing at attention in the center of the chamber, felt each of his auxiliary hearts beating at a different rhythm. Sir, the humans have been deceiving us for centuries. Their actual technological capabilities far exceed our most optimistic projections. Deceiving us? Supreme Commander Rak-8 interjected with barely concealed rage. Dude, you're telling this council that a single species has been running a covert operation for hundreds of years without our vast intelligence network detecting anything? That appears to be exactly what happened, sir. The silence that followed was so complete that Vex-9 could hear his own breathing echoing in the chamber. Finally, Thok Prime leaned forward on his throne. Show me the recordings again. For the third time, the council watched as human weapon systems casually disintegrated Zenthari dreadnoughts. They observed human vessels that moved in ways that defied known physics. They listened to Admiral Cole's calm, almost bored voice as he explained exactly how thoroughly the humans had outmaneuvered the Empire. This Admiral Cole, Thok Prime mused. He seemed remarkably well informed about our military doctrine. Yes, sir. He knew our approach vector, our fleet composition, even the positioning of individual ship classes. It was as if he had access to our complete battle plans. Supreme Commander Zil-4, the Empire's chief intelligence officer, shifted uncomfortably. Sir, that would be impossible. Our security protocols are apparently worthless, Thok Prime finished coldly. Continue the recording. They watched Admiral Cole's final transmission, where the human had revealed the true scope of their preparation. Dozens of star systems, thousands of ships, centuries of planning. The council members exchanged increasingly nervous glances as the implications became clear. How many species, Thok Prime asked quietly, have we conquered in the past 800 years? 437, sir. Vex-9 replied immediately. And how many of those species fought back? All of them, sir. Initially. But they all surrendered when faced with our superior firepower. Yes, sir. Eventually. Thok Prime's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The humans didn't surrender. No, sir, they laughed. The Grand Marshal rose from his throne, his massive frame casting shadows across the chamber. At 12 feet tall, and weighing nearly a ton, Thok Prime was an impressive figure even by Zenthari standards. His ceremonial armor, forged from the metals of 1,000 conquered worlds, clinked softly as he moved. They laughed, he repeated, tasting the words. And then they proceeded to demonstrate that they could have destroyed our fleet at any time. The tactical analysis suggests they were holding back significantly, sir. Vex-9 confirmed. Their weapons systems appeared to be operating at perhaps 20% capacity. 20%. Thok Prime turned to face the council. What does this tell us about human military doctrine? Supreme Commander Rak-8 cleared his throat nervously. Sir, it suggests they prefer to demonstrate overwhelming superiority rather than simply annihilate their enemies. Correct. They want us alive and capable of spreading word of what happened. This is psychological warfare on a scale we've never encountered. The holographic display shifted, showing intelligence reports from across the Empire. Red markers indicated systems where unusual activity had been detected in the past few cycles. As the pattern became clear, several council members made sounds of distress. Sir, Supreme Commander Zil-4 spoke hesitantly. If these reports are accurate, human vessels have been observed in 43 different systems across our territory. Systems we thought were completely secure. They've been watching us, Thok Prime said with something that might have been admiration. Not just watching, learning our weaknesses, mapping our defenses, identifying our key strategic assets. Commander Vex-9 nodded grimly. Admiral Cole indicated they've been preparing for this moment for 3 centuries. That's longer than some of our member species have been part of the Empire. And during all that time, Thok Prime continued, we dismissed them as insignificant. We classified Earth as a low-priority target suitable for eventual agricultural development. The irony was not lost on anyone in the chamber. The Zenthari Empire, master of half the galaxy, had been completely outmaneuvered by a species they had considered barely worth conquering. Sir, Supreme Commander Hex-7 interjected. What are our options? Do we mobilize the full Imperial fleet? Thok Prime's laugh was a sound like grinding metal. Our full Imperial fleet consists of approximately 15,000 vessels. The humans demonstrated over 9,000 ships in a single system, and Admiral Cole made it clear that was merely a demonstration. So we're outgunned? Dramatically. The council fell silent again as the full scope of their situation became apparent. For 2,000 years, the Zenthari Empire had grown through systematic conquest and intimidation. They had never faced an opponent with superior technology and tactical planning. There is another consideration, Thok Prime added thoughtfully. The humans made no attempt to pursue our retreating forces. They could have easily destroyed Vex-9's entire fleet, but they chose not to. This suggests they're not interested in conquest for its own sake. What are they interested in, sir? Before Thok Prime could respond, the chamber's communication system activated with an incoming priority transmission. The source identifier showed coordinates for the Sol system. Shall I accept the transmission, sir? The council's communication officer asked. Yes, let's hear what our new neighbors have to say. The holographic display shifted, and suddenly the council found themselves looking at a human female with silver hair and penetrating blue eyes. She was seated behind a simple desk in what appeared to be a comfortable office rather than a military command center. Greetings, Grand Marshal Thok Prime and esteemed members of the Zenthari High Council, she began, her voice carrying an odd mixture of formality and familiarity. I am Director Helen Torres of the Human Diplomatic Corps. The fact that she knew their names and titles despite never having official contact was not lost on anyone present. I trust Commander Vex-9 has provided you with a complete report of recent events in the Sol system, Director Torres continued. I'm contacting you now to discuss the future of Zenthari human relations. Thok Prime stepped forward. Director Torres? I am Grand Marshal Thok Prime. I admit, your species has surprised us. Please, Grand Marshal, let's dispense with the diplomatic pleasantries. You attempted to conquer our homeworld and we demonstrated that such an attempt would be inadvisable. Now we need to discuss what happens next. The human's directness was refreshing, if somewhat unsettling. Most species groveled when addressing Zenthari leadership. What do you propose? Thok Prime asked. We propose that the Zenthari Empire begins a fundamental restructuring of its approach to interspecies relations. Supreme Commander Rak-8 bristled. You're demanding that we change our entire civilization? I'm suggesting that you evolve your civilization, Torres replied calmly. Your current model, conquer, subjugate, exploit, is not sustainable in the long term. Eventually you would have encountered a species like us anyway. We're simply offering you the opportunity to change course before that becomes necessary. And if we refuse? Thok Prime inquired. Director Torres smiled, and somehow her expression was even more unsettling than Admiral Cole's had been. Grand Marshal, you've ruled through fear for 2,000 years. You understand the psychology of intimidation better than anyone. So let me ask you a question. What happens when the intimidator becomes the intimidated? The question hung in the air like poison gas. Every council member understood the implication. Your subject species, Torres continued, have remained loyal, primarily because they believed resistance was impossible. What do you think will happen when word spreads that the mighty Zenthari Empire was effortlessly defeated by a single human fleet? Thok Prime felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Genuine fear, not fear of death. He had faced that many times in battle, but fear of irrelevance. Fear of watching everything he had built crumble to dust. Rebellion, he said quietly. Exactly. System after system, species after species, all deciding that perhaps the Zenthari Empire isn't as invincible as they thought. Your military will be stretched thin trying to maintain control, and eventually something will break. Unless you begin transitioning from an empire based on conquest to a federation based on mutual cooperation. Unless you start treating your subject species as partners rather than property. Unless you demonstrate that the Zenthari can lead through inspiration rather than intimidation. Supreme Commander Zil-4 spoke up. You're asking us to fundamentally alter our entire society. I'm asking you to save it, Torres replied. Grand Marshal, how many rebellions has your empire faced in the past century? Thok Prime considered the question. 17 major uprisings, 63 minor revolts. And the cost of suppressing those rebellions? Considerable resources and personnel. Now imagine that number increasing by a factor of 10 or 100. Imagine trying to maintain control when every species in your empire believes they have a chance of winning their independence. The mathematics were sobering. The Zenthari military was powerful, but it wasn't infinite. Faced with simultaneous uprisings across hundreds of worlds, even their technological advantage might not be sufficient. What exactly are you proposing? Thok Prime asked. A gradual transition. Begin by offering genuine autonomy to your more cooperative species. Establish trade agreements rather than tribute systems. Invest in your subjects' development rather than simply extracting resources. Show the galaxy that the Zenthari Empire can be a force for progress rather than oppression. And in return, humanity will serve as a stabilizing influence. We'll help mediate disputes, provide technological assistance where appropriate, and ensure that the transition proceeds smoothly. Supreme Commander Vex-9 laughed harshly. You expect us to trust you, after what you've done? Director Torres's expression became very serious. La Commander, what we've done is demonstrate our capability. What we haven't done is use that capability to conquer or destroy. We could have reduced your fleet to atoms, but we chose not to. We could be threatening your homeworld right now, but we're offering cooperation instead. That should tell you something about our intentions. It tells me you're more sophisticated than most of our enemies, Thok Prime replied. But the fundamental question remains, why should the Zenthari Empire submit to human guidance? Because the alternative is the collapse of everything you've built over 2 millennia. The stark truth of that statement resonated through the chamber. Every council member understood the precarious position they now found themselves in. How long? Thok Prime asked. How long for what? How long do we have to make this decision? Director Torres checked something on her desk. Our analysts estimate that word of your defeat at Seoul will reach the outer territories within 6 standard cycles. After that, you'll start seeing the first signs of organized resistance. I'd recommend beginning the transition process within the next 4 cycles. 4 cycles, Thok Prime repeated. To restructure an empire spanning half the galaxy. Grand Marshal, humans have a saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. The important thing isn't how quickly you complete the transition, but that you begin it with genuine commitment to change. The communication channel remained open as the council members exchanged glances. 2,000 years of history, tradition, and identity were being challenged by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Finally, Thok Prime spoke. Director Torres, if we agree to begin this transition, what guarantees do we have that humanity won't simply replace us as the dominant power in this region? You have our word, Grand Marshal, but more importantly, you have our track record. In 800 years of secret observation, we never once interfered with your internal affairs until you directly threatened us. We could have toppled your empire centuries ago if conquest was our goal. Then what is your goal? Peace, Grand Marshal. Stability. A galaxy where species can develop and thrive without fear of conquest or extinction. A galaxy where conflicts are resolved through negotiation rather than warfare. Thok Prime looked around the chamber at his council members. In their eyes he saw the same mixture of fear, uncertainty, and grudging respect that he felt himself. Very well, Director Torres. The Zenthari Empire will consider your proposal, but understand that such a fundamental change cannot happen overnight. Of course not, but it can begin today. And Grand Marshal, thank you for having the wisdom to see that strength sometimes means knowing when not to fight. The communication channel closed, leaving the council in contemplative silence. After several minutes, Supreme Commander Vex-9 spoke. Sir, do we really have any choice? Thok Prime walked to the great window overlooking the capital city of the Zenthari homeworld. Below, millions of beings went about their daily lives, unaware that their empire had just been fundamentally challenged by a species they had never heard of. No, he said quietly. We don't have a choice. The humans have seen to that. Sir, they've offered us something no enemy has ever offered before. The opportunity to surrender with dignity, to transform rather than simply submit. It's actually quite generous. You're going to accept their proposal? Thok Prime turned back to his council. I'm going to do something that hasn't been done in Zenthari history for over 1,000 years. I'm going to admit that we were wrong, and I'm going to ask for help in making things right. Commander Vex-9, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, finally spoke. Sir, the humans, they're not like us, are they? No, Commander. They're not like us at all. They're not like anyone we've ever encountered. And perhaps that's exactly what this galaxy needs. As the council began to disperse, each member carrying the weight of impending change, Thok Prime remained at the window. For the first time in his long reign, he found himself genuinely curious about the future. The humans had taught the Zenthari Empire something profound. Sometimes the greatest victory is convincing your enemy to become your ally. And sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose not to break what could instead be transformed. The galaxy would never be the same. But maybe, just maybe, that was a good thing.